You felt it shift the moment you stopped reaching out. Not because you did something bold, but because something went quiet. That quiet is where this starts. Right now, this keeps happening to a lot of men. You pull back, you don't explain, and suddenly, she's thinking about you more than when you were available. The emotion under it is confusion. If that sounds familiar, stay. If you want formulas or tricks, this isn't for you. Here's the misread. Most people think attraction grows through presence, through showing up, through effort. But what actually builds the obsession is what happens when you're gone. Not gone forever, just gone enough to be felt. That doesn't feel fair. It feels backward, and it's why so many men lose leverage without knowing when it happened. Let's start with the moment everyone ignores. You didn't leave dramatically. You didn't threaten. You didn't disappear to punish. You just stopped leaning in. No long texts, no checking, no chasing clarity. From the outside, it looks passive. From the inside, something else starts moving. Because attraction isn't built when she feels secure. It's built when her mind has to work. When you were present, her nervous system was calm. Calm doesn't scan. Calm doesn't replay conversations. Calm doesn't ask, what did I miss? Absence does. This is where people argue. They say healthy attraction shouldn't involve anxiety. They're right in theory. But we're not talking about what should happen. We're talking about what actually happens. The mind doesn't attach to comfort. It attaches to unfinished business. Think about the ordinary details. She checks her phone and doesn't see your name. She notices the silence where your attention used to sit. Nothing bad happened. That's the problem. Her brain wants a reason, so it starts inventing one. Was I less interesting? Did I say something wrong? Is he talking to someone else? Did I misjudge how much he cared? None of these questions existed when you were always there. They only show up after you leave space. Here's the cost most men miss. When you overstay emotionally, you train her nervous system that you are predictable. Predictability feels safe, but it also feels finished. Finished things don't get obsessed over. They get categorized. When you walk away without noise, you don't create drama. You create an open file. That open file is uncomfortable, and discomfort pulls attention. This is not about manipulation. It's about how the brain reacts to loss of control. When you were present, she didn't have to wonder. Wondering is where attraction starts rebuilding itself. Notice how subtle this is. You didn't become better. You didn't change your looks. You didn't say the perfect line. You simply removed access. And access is what kills tension. There's a quiet status shift here. When you are always available, you are part of her environment. When you step back, you become a variable. Variables get tracked. They get monitored. They get remembered. This is why absence feels powerful. Not because it dominates, but because it destabilizes expectations. Now here's where men usually ruin it. They think walking away is the point. It's not. The point is what your absence forces her to confront. Her assumptions, her sense of control, her belief that you would always be there. When that belief breaks, something sharp wakes up. You can see it in small behaviors. She rereads old messages. She brings you up casually in conversation. She checks your social media more than before. None of this is conscious planning. It's anxiety trying to close a loop. Here's the uncomfortable part. If your presence was doing all the emotional work, your absence reveals it. And that revelation hurts, because it suggests she didn't miss you when you were trying. She missed you when you stopped. That feels like rejection, but it's actually information. It tells you where attraction really lived, not in your effort, but in her uncertainty. Now rotate the angle. Why does this work more on some women than others? Because people who are used to emotional control struggle most when it's removed. Not control over you, control over the outcome. When you were present, she could predict how things would go. When you left, prediction collapsed. Collapse forces focus. This is why explaining yourself weakens the effect. The moment you say why you're stepping back, you close the loop. You give her certainty. Certainty is calming. Calm kills obsession. Silence doesn't feel kind, but it feels unresolved. And unresolved things stick. There's a dignity cost here too. When you keep offering clarity to someone who hasn't earned it, you lower your own position. You teach her that access to you requires no investment. Walking away without hostility reclaims that dignity, not by punishment, by removal. Now a grounding moment. This isn't about playing cold. It's about not over-functioning emotionally. You don't vanish. You don't ghost. You simply stop carrying the connection alone. That's the relief. You don't have to perform absence. You just stop performing presence. Midway through, another shift happens. Her thoughts stop being about you and start being about herself. What did I do? Why do I care? Why does this bother me? That's the internal erosion. Attraction turns inward before it turns outward again. This is where people disagree hard. They say real interest shouldn't need space to grow. But real interest often hides under comfort until comfort is removed. Comfort masks intensity. Absence unmasks it. Here's a younger self mirror. Think back to a time you lost access to someone before you were ready. Notice how much mental energy it took. Notice how ordinary details became charged. Nothing changed about them. Your access did. The same mechanism is at work here. Now let's talk about the long-term cost if you misunderstand this. If you believe obsession means love, you'll chase the wrong signal. Obsession fades. Patterns remain. Absence creates attraction, but only presence with boundaries sustains respect. This is why coming back too eager collapses everything. The moment you rush to re-enter, you restore predictability. The loop closes, the tension dies. You don't need to punish, you need to pace. Another angle. Why does this feel unfair to men who try hard? Because effort is rewarded in work, not in attraction. Attraction responds to self-containment, to someone who is whole with or without being chosen. Walking away communicates that without saying it. Not confidence, not arrogance, self-containment. When you don't chase explanation, you imply that your life continues. That implication is louder than any speech. Now notice the system behind this. Modern dating trains constant availability, instant replies, emotional transparency on demand. That system kills mystery, and mystery is what keeps attention alive. Absence reintroduces mystery without theatrics. Another micro-relief. You don't need to disappear for weeks. Often it's a shift in emotional weight. Shorter replies, less explaining, no fixing. The pressure comes from what you stopped doing. Here's the identity threat. If she realizes she valued you more when you weren't chasing her approval, it forces a reevaluation of her role, of your role, of the dynamic. That reevaluation is uncomfortable, but it's where leverage resets. Leverage isn't power over someone, it's freedom from needing them to validate you. The more free you appear, the more attention you pull. Late in this process, something heavy shows up. She may reach out, not with clarity, with testing. Casual messages, random memories, soft hooks. This isn't resolution. It's checking if access is back. If you rush, you fail the test. If you stay grounded, the tension remains alive. Now answer one thing. Why does obsession fade if mishandled? Because anxiety wants relief, not depth. If you offer relief too fast, she relaxes, and relaxed minds don't obsess. The final cost. If you never learn this, you keep proving value to people who only notice it when it's gone. That erodes self-respect over time. The men who understand this stop performing. They stop selling themselves. They let absence do what presence never could. Here's the recognition. If this made sense without hyping you up, if it felt uncomfortable but accurate, you already know why this channel exists. What comes next is not about keeping someone. It's about who you become when you stop chasing certainty. That question stays open, and it should.